Live, 1 second. All right, we're doing ecosystem mimicry, and the perennial plant guilds. So you have your. Let's start with the classic fruit tree. Any fruit tree, boom. There's your canopy. Apple, pear, peach, plum, you name it. You got your canopy. All right, then anything could be. You could use a legume. Any one of these is going to be a legume. The one I'm going to choose for fruit trees as annuals or the ground cover. So you could use things like clover, right? There's a lot of ground cover, a lot of annual legumes. So we could choose, we're going to go ahead and choose field peas and lupins. Field peas are just little wild peas that are grown just for cover crops. And lupins are a wildflower. So you could choose those as a legume. Let's go with wildflowers legumes. So that's going to be apple will be number one. The legumes will be the annuals. And then you just have to pick the rest. You need to pick a shrub to go work in there. So maybe we have a legume and which is also a flower, but an annual. So the legume's only going to be blooming in the spring. So maybe I want another legume if possible. So maybe I'll add a vining legume. Maybe I'll plant some peas or beans in those areas. So we'll do vines and annuals legumes. Then your shrub could be like a berry bush. Berries like partial shade. You can put a raspberry, blueberry, blackberry, boysenberry underneath your apple tree. Right? Not strawberry. Strawberry is a ground cover. Right? And then your understory could be things like, I don't know, herbs like oregano, thyme, planted comfrey, other stuff, right? And then your annuals, of course, are going to be your lupins. So you just pick a plant for each of these jobs, and you're fine.
Annual is what?
Only around one season.
Did you name it annual?
Lupins.
Lupin?
Yeah.
Could you spell it? I don't know.
Lupin.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That's
Lupin. Yeah. So what you choose is you can choose anything, but you got to follow the rubric, the design of having a tree, a shrub, a ground cover, a vine, an annual, perennial, and then a legume could be any of them, right? So we could have a mesquite tree be our legume. Our shrubs could be anything, right? It doesn't even have to be edible plants. This could be landscaped. Right? Your mesquite tree is your legume. You have shrubs that are, I don't know, like a desert ranger or something, salvia. You have your annuals, perennials, and so forth.
You could get ornamental oregano.
Yeah, you can get flowering plants because you need pollinators too. So the idea is one of these is always a legume, right? One of these has to be a pollinator of some sort, right? It could be a tree, it could be a bush, it could be a ground cover, it could be a vine, somebody. Right, so one has to provide the ground cover.
You can never use grass in the ground cover.
You could, yeah, you could use grass. Clover's great, and you're not limited to edible plants here in a perennial guild. No, you don't have to be. You could have a fruit tree with a flower garden underneath it, and the flower garden has one of each of these components: a flowering shrub, flowering ground cover, annuals, and perennials. Oh, the area. Yeah, they'll be acclimated to the area. It's like imagine you have a landscape, but you're putting in fruit trees instead of shade trees. Same thing. Yeah.
So I have 2 questions. First question is, can you go over the annuals again? You said you wanted to pick one for the spring and then one for the fall, right?
That's all. Yeah, I didn't pick one for those.
Okay, and then my second
beans.
question,
I think we want beans. Beans.
My second question is tree onions, perpetual onions or Egyptian walking onions, however you want to call them. Would that be considered an understory?
Yeah, or a perennial understory. Anything that's not a bush is understory.
Okay.
Right.
What's an example of a sub canopy?
A smaller tree. So, for example, you could have a big tree, like an elm tree or a mesquite tree, and then underneath that have a shorter, smaller tree. A good example for that would be like a maple tree or a fruit tree would be a good example. But I usually don't, you don't need to have the subcanopy.
Yeah.
You don't need to. Right. Now, in fact, you don't need every single one of these. You don't need all 6 to make it work.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but you definitely have to have the legume, a canopy, and an understory. Those are the main ones you got to have.
Okay.
But in permaculture, they want you to do all of them so that they work cohesive as a unit. Usually, if you just do like a canopy, understory, and ground covers, you're okay. Or a legume, and you have to have a legume somewhere in there. But you see, what I'm saying the legume can also be a flowering plant, can also be a fruiting plant, right?
Let's say you have just moved a pomegranate and had to cut it back really hard, and it's only about 3 feet, 2 feet tall. So now that is going to be right now by itself. So if you put bush green beans around it, that's your legume.
Yeah,
and
or
it's
some other
annual,
plant.
But it won't fit anything else at this point.
Well, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Usually, you design from the beginning with the legumes,
Yeah.
but you only need to have 3 stages of this.
Yeah. So the
That's
pomegranate could have been the
well,
under.
the pomegranate is kind of no matter what. You can close the door, and I'll turn the heat.
Yeah.
It's always hot. The pomegranate will become a tree, a bushy tree, fast. The pomegranate grows really fast.
Yeah.
So you're just gonna let it grow. You're gonna wait and let it grow.
Yeah. Okay.
So a good example for a pomegranate, maybe for a pomegranate, she plants a pomegranate plant. She could plant like a grapevine
Oh.
next to it, and she could plant for a bush maybe a salvia, some sort of sage that's blooming,
Oh, I did that.
or a rosemary plant. And then for ground cover, you could plant walking onions or something else. So you don't need all of these components, but the more components you have, the better your guild is. Right. Remember, any of these could be a legume, and they don't all have to be edible or not. That's up to you. So like fruit trees, we like fruit trees to have at least every fruit tree has itself, and then understory and legume. So a lot of them are going to be, they're all the minimum 3 parts. Right. So for example, fruit trees, apple trees, berry bushes, legume ground cover, a clover ground cover. Right, which works really good. That's the minimum you could do, 3.
If you plant clover underneath like an apple tree or something,
Mhm.
how far back do you need to stay?
We don't really worry about that in the permaculture because the plants they'll kill them. They'll space themselves out because the clover won't grow all the way up to the tree. It's too shady, so it's not going to happen anyways. So we don't really worry about that too much.
Is clover the same thing as oxalis?
No.
Okay, good.
Yeah, oxalis and clover are definitely not the same thing. So let's do another guild. Let's do an example of a 3-part guild. Let's do a 7-part guild again for apple. So we have our apple, okay, which is actually let's not choose an apple. Let's go bigger. Because we need a sub-canopy. So let's go big.
Pinion vine?
Now walnuts are not good because they kill everything underneath.
It's a pinion.
So let's go with another nut tree.
Almond?
Right, let's go with we can do an almond, but almond's a good choice. So we could do an almond tree or a sub-canopy for a canopy, which is a bigger, taller tree. Or I was thinking of, since you said a mimosa tree, we do a mimosa tree because it's a legume. And a mimosa is a good tree because you can chop and drop it.
Oh.
You can cut the branches down, chop it up, and then it'll grow back the next year. You can cut it down, chop it. And also imagine every time the mimosa is growing, the leaves are falling off. That's fertilizer. Or a mesquite tree. So this could be a mesquite tree or a mimosa. And then your sub-canopy, there's your apple tree, growing kind of off to the side, somewhat underneath, not under the
Not in the
mesquite
shade.
tree, but kind of in the shade.
Not in the range.
I can draw. I'm going to erase this and I'll draw.
I have a 15-foot mimosa.
Okay, let me draw it.
Okay.
I wish I had more space.
We could have done that already.
Quick question, going back to,
You
the
could have fixed
mesquite.
it.
Screw, well.
Okay, go ahead.
Can you chop in,
Chop the whole thing down.
chop and shred it like you would with the mimosa?
Yeah.
Okay.
So here is the canopy of the mesquite tree.
What tree is that?
Can we roll it up at least halfway? Not by the finger, but by rolling by hand. And then just take it out.
Maybe table where it's down.
Yeah. Boy, I got you, you're tall, she's tall, you tall.
You still need a chair though.
Yeah. Roll it up, you know, that way.
Student workers. We can just pull it off. We can just pull the whole thing off. I can
No.
use that. Okay.
You need
Yeah,
a.
you need it. I'll stand on the table. Almost done.
You need a chair.
Now we need a chair.
Where is it having? Yeah, right.
She's a student worker, so she can do this.
I signed a contract.
She signed a
You go to the
contract.
other side, and then.
I'll hold this part, and then she's got insurance.
And then we can. Are you gonna?
No, not today. Not today.
Okay, well, I'll try to fix it on Monday and put it back.
Actually, it's good that we pull it off because they can
It'll
fix
be
it.
easier. Just put it on the ground.
Okay. You gotta follow around. Grab it, I don't wanna drop it.
I got it.
I'm gonna roll it. Let me get this thing folded. Get it out of the way.
Success.
You should probably have to check out the other one too.
Yeah, to put it down.
The other one's
Wait, wait.
kind of- There we go, thank God. Okay, so now you can see this now. I'll draw on this side. And there's me, so you can get some reference to size. Okay, so mesquite's our tallest tree. It's going to be our canopy. Then we'll put in an apple tree, right? Apple sub canopy, right? What's next? We need a shrub.
Yeah.
So I got my legume, by the way. So legume. So we already planned our legume. Apple. So let's do a shrub layer. Let's do something. Let's do all edible. Okay. Let's stick to edible stuff. So in here, I'm going to grow a bunch of raspberries and blueberries, and actually, let's do boysenberry. That's going to be underneath the apple, around the apple, under the mesquite. Then over here, I might have. I love to add grasses to my garden because grasses are what? Shallow rooted, right? The mesquite's deep rooted. The apple, shallow rooted. Boysenberry, middle kind of roots. So remember getting different heights of root, different heights of plants.
Boysenberries right there?
Yeah, this is all boysenberry, big old
What's
patch.
that?
Me, this is a grass. So
What's a grass?
let's choose.
Ryegrass?
And ryegrass is an annual. Let's go with. Actually, we could do ryegrass.
So that would be.
That would be our annual. It kills our. It gets rid of our annual plant.
Okay, so that's number 5.
Yeah.
Is that a ryegrass?
Ryegrass, yeah. And then we'll do a perennial plant. Let's do some flowers over here. So here we got some little flowery guys.
We're still doing understory?
Yep, this is all. No, understory is the boysenberry.
Okay.
We got our annual. Annual. Perennial, let's do. Let's make it a little bit pretty. We can do a penstemon. Penstemons are really pretty flowers. It could be anything with flowers here, right? And then maybe for an annual, right? Or like a growing, like little plants growing on the thing, I have let's say we grow strawberries as a ground cover. So we have over, right? Main canopy, secondary canopy, understory, which is the boysenberries. I have my perennial.
Shrubs.
Well, this whole, I'll do a shrub in a second. We're not quite there. Let's do it. Let's do this edible. So let's make this. Let's make this a sage. Something we can use. Since everything so far is edible, strawberry, ground cover, boysenberry, and a shrub. What's another good edible shrub? That's not too bad. Let's do.
Yeah, Hollywood cherry.
Yeah, we can do a holly cherry.
Or that could be a sunny.
Cherry.
You had a board out.
It's not a tree. It's a bush. Right, so we have bush, grass, understory, ground cover, perennial,
What did you put for the understory?
boysenberries.
Oh, boysenberry.
And if you really, 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 really wanted to get crazy, we could add a grape somewhere that climbs a tree. But I wouldn't
A
do
vine,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you have one of each layer.
So it's not necessarily that the mesquite is a canopy over all of that,
No,
but at some time during the day.
yeah.
shade-
Sometime during the day, this will cover this stuff. So another more simple one. Let's do a simple one. Let's just do just the apple tree. Right? Here's our apple tree. Apple. And our bush. Let's do a blueberry. And our ground cover. Sweet potato. And in this one we're gonna do and then we're gonna do
So would a guava be considered a understory?
Huh?
Guava be an understory?
depends on the size you want to go.
Big guava. Mine's about this big.
Yeah. So I mean, a guava could be a canopy if it's the tallest thing.
Apparently it doesn't like snow that much.
So like for example, apple, blueberry, lupins, lemongrass, and
Sweet potato.
right? So you got ground cover, bush, annual, perennial grass, and a tree. Remember, you don't have to have all the steps. One can be both, right? The bush could be understory, shrub, legume, right? Right, because it could be a shrubby legume that's an understory. So you don't have to have a shrub and a legume and a bush. They can fit, if you pick the right plants, you can fit, remember, for regeneration, multiple parts. Right? So, or the bush could be, there's not a lot of edible there's not a lot of edible legumes that are bushes, right? That I know of, but there are a lot of bushy plants that are edible. Think of asparagus is an edible plant. It's pretty bushy. It's kind of big. Artichokes get relatively tall that are perennial. Things like goji berries or berries are pretty good bushy sized plants. What else? We have that's perennial. Yeah, lemon verbena, stuff like that are bushies. So there's a lot of herbs that fit that category. A lot of herbs also fit the category of ground cover. Oregano, thyme, right? Creeping rosemary, right? So you can use all sorts of stuff. So I just want to make sure you're picking questions.
What do you have under the lemongrass?
Lemongrass,
What's under that?
sweet potato.
Oh, that's easy. Sweet potato.
And I'll put you're going to get some links to some sites that are also have charts. So you're getting very bad drawings, but you'll see pictures of better drawings. Right, so. So it's pretty easy. It's a conceptual to think about. It's just layering it, right? And we have sweet potato, lemongrass, blueberry, annual lupin, and apple tree. And then guess what are you going to do with your next fruit tree? Same thing. Not the exact same grouping though. You're going to do the exact same thing, but you're going to make another guild for your peach tree, and then another guild for your whatever tree. So every tree is going to have a little grouping of plants with it.
So
Right.
mesquite is a canopy tree.
Yeah.
But I don't know what that is.
It's just a big tree, common desert tree out here.
Yeah.
And it's a legume, and it's edible.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you.
Honey and a mesquite. So, and remember, the more roles a plant can play, the better, right? So like a tree, a legume, and edible, that'd be great. So like, you guys don't grow them here, but that's why mesquite's one of the best trees, because it's a legume, it's edible, right? And it's native, and so it has a lot of, it brings the pollinators, so it has multiple roles.
What part is edible?
The pod.
The pod.
Yeah.
But that is, it takes all the water away.
Not necessarily, no. Because the tap roots,
Okay.
right? Remember that big down tap root?
Right.
Same thing with this apple tree. The apple tree's roots are going to be lower down than this blueberry's roots will be kind of in the middle, right? Then the grass will have very shallow roots. The sweet potato will have the shallowest roots, and these guys will have roots that once they die, they're dead. So you have all these different layers of roots. They don't compete, right? They don't compete, right? They're just doing different things.
Okay. So like a 5-year-old is going to kill out a 10-year-old apple.
No, the apple might
Chill out.
have, well, it might shade out the mesquite if it's like you plant too close together. You don't want to plant the trees right on each other. But yeah, so generally you have like a little community for each of your garden.
So 20-foot distance?
Yeah, like these are like 10, 15-foot circles.
Okay. So your Palo Verde has pods after your flowers.
Yeah.
And that would be your legume.
Yeah, this is the legume, the tree.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
But remember, the legume could be any part of this. It could be a ground cover, it could be the shrub.
If you're
it could be-
stuck with it because it's there.
Yeah, you need to have the legume.
Okay.
Where is the... Do we have that wiper stuff in here?
There's a spray bottle over there on the counter. I don't know if that's what you're looking
That's
for.
what I'm looking for. I need to clean the board.
Use that blueberry around. Actually, just use water.
This is water.
No, it's
It is.
Yeah. For sure.
There we go. So remember that, and then from above, looking down, you want to, when you design these things, you could have it, you could say, here's my tree. Okay, and then around our fruit tree, we're gonna plant. So looking down, I'm looking down. So we could have an apple. We could have a berry. Right? We could have sweet potato. Right?
Just starting the garden. You have to know, you have to estimate how big that would be.
Yeah, knowing the size of the plant before you plant it.
Yeah.
The size that is important.
Right? Lemongrass.
Yeah, I don't want to plant everything else.
It's a dwarf, it's only gonna make a fit. Yeah. Now, ideally, you want them all to.
So we have our legume, right? And they're all kind of around the tree. Not under the tree, around the tree. You could put some stuff in the shade under the tree, like comfrey or something.
But pretty much touching like that. No.
Yeah, close together. Mhm.
Like a blanket.
Or if you're in a traditional garden, This is what they do in a big, like in an orchard, a big orchard. You know, you have, let's say these are your. I'm gonna change this now.
Carlos, what was E before you erased it?
Peanut.
What do you call it?
Oh, I mixed this up already. Hold on, mix this up. There we go. So you do it in a row. So what we have here real quick is apple, mesquite. This is supposed to be another apple.
What's the orientation on that? Would that be north-south?
Be any orientation. So like in a commercial permaculture orchard, every other tree or every fifth tree would be a legume tree. Question.
What kind of free tree do they give?
For free.
Yeah, the free shade.
Oh, you're gonna get a desert willow, a pistache, and what was the other one? A raywood ash. And unfortunately, none of those are like, yeah. So in here, I just switched it around. So this is what they would do it in a row. Every other tree would be a legume. You put your berries between. One side could be ground cover. One side could be.
Do you mind moving over a little bit so I can take a photo? Thank you.
So yeah, there's just different ways of doing it. The little garden around each tree, that's good at the house level. So apple, mesquite. Right? Or every 4 apples, you have a mesquite tree. So what they would do in an orchard is every couple of years, as the mesquites get really big, they would chop them down. Get a wood chipper, throw all the wood chips under the plants, and the mesquite would grow back from the roots. In 10 more years, chop it down. Let it grow back from the roots, chop it down. Over and over and over again. Right?
And as an example, if you're in a mobile home park, you do not own the land, and your mulberry trees are all over the place, right?
Yep.
So can you dig down without hurting the tree to put in some berries and some other things for diversity because they are standalones?
Probably it will hurt the roots, but
It won't, because they're huge. I mean,
yeah,
they're not babies.
they're probably not going to hurt the mulberry trees.
No. But you can interplant
You
without.
can.
They can learn to get along. Let's put it that
Well,
way.
it's better if you start from the beginning.
Yeah, and if you have no choice, then you try second best.
Yeah, because when you have a big tree and you put stuff underneath it, the root systems are already there.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, so it's a little bit more work.
Mhm.
Now, if you do this from the beginning, they grow together like they would in a forest.
But if you don't have that choice, then you try.
Exactly. So in a landscape, I'm going to erase this part here. So in a permaculture landscape, you won't see it look like this so much because that's too many details, right? In that, what you'll generally see is like this is a backyard. So here's my mom's orchard. Mom's orchard looks like this. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4. No, I put it in. So that's the garden. Those round circles are tree. This is a sitting area. This is all place where you can sit past.
Located when it rises.
So this is north,
Yes.
south,
Yes.
east.
Okay, that's.
Okay, so this is this central area in here. It's just gravel, not gravel, dirt. So that's where you walk and you sit in. There's a fire pit right there in the middle. Fire pit. Okay, so these are our fruit trees, right? Each fruit tree is in this little circle. So around each tree is going to be there is going to be a guild around each little tree. So all I have to do is letter the trees. And then I say, okay, A is apple guild. And then I list what's in that area. That's all you got to do. And I'm only going with like 3 or 4 plants. Because these are small circles. Like this is small. Like it looks big, but you know, this whole thing is only maybe 40 feet wide. Right? Or what I can do, that's one way to do it. Or what I would prefer, but it's not my house, but my mom's house, what I would prefer is leave these as the trees and then build the guild all in the empty space. Right? So you plant all around the trees.
So how far does each guild go around each tree?
That's up to you.
Okay. You can make them touch, right?
Yeah. Yeah, like in a forest, it's touching. It goes from one to the next. Or like in my mom's yard, what it's going to look like, it's going to be this little guild, and then a space, and then another little guild, and then a space. Yeah, little gardens. My mom calls them little casitas, little houses. So you have the next one is over here, and then the next one.
Basically, the size is up to you. You can shrink.
Yeah,
it
there's
down
no,
if they have a small space.
yeah, there's no right size. Yeah. Yeah. Open soil, open. There's a fire pit, like we could sit.
Oh, okay.
So like, imagine that this is your forest now, right? All those trees are your forest, and then you put these plants underneath all around it.
Yeah.
Right, that's one way to do it, or you do individual little guilds.
Yeah, I like that.
Now, it saves water to do them individually. That's, I think, why we do it at my mom's house, because it saves water maintenance. It's less maintenance because there's less plants to do, right? Whereas this, if you plant it all around it, you have a lot more maintenance. But
So everything on drip?
yeah, everything's on drip. We're having problems with irrigation. We got to fix it. So yeah, so that's just an example of like what you can do for planting wise. So you either can do individual circles, or they're your forest, and then you build all the understory all around it. Now you can do it with native plants and not irrigate. That's kind of what we're thinking of doing. Like you could have a bunch of wildflowers mix seeds all in the ground, right? And then when the trees lose their leaves in the winter, and you water, they sprout and they're doing their thing, and then they're up, and then you mow them. Everything when they die, you just mow it with the mower, and it just stays in place, and then they all grow back again in the spring.
Did you put mulch at the base of each of those plants to help conserve water?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, Oh, you are going to put mulch. Yeah, you'll definitely put mulch down. There's a lot of ways to do this. So that's the nice thing about permaculture. There's no right way. There's just idea. It's the concept that you got to keep in mind why you're doing it. So,
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can we break for lunch?
what time is it now?
It's 11:27.
You get out at 2? Yeah, if you guys want to eat lunch now. Let me finish. Let's go at 11. Yeah, a couple more minutes. Go to 11:30,
Sounds good.
and then we'll go. So this is good though, because like I said, if you're doing drip irrigation, this is easier because you could like have the irrigation around, like imagine like a ring, like a donut around the tree, or like 1 or 2 sprinklers at each tree. This you'd have to irrigate the whole area. So like you might need drip irrigation or something. So that's why we don't do that. But in a actual orchard, they're going to do this way. Yeah, and then we'll mow it all down in the summer, leave the mulch there, and then come back. But in the home garden, I think it's better to do it this way, which each little tree with its own garden. Because in your home orchard, your orchard's not huge, giant, multi-acre, thousands of trees. Exactly. You just have each individual tree. You have a question?
No.
Oh, you were stretching. Okay. Let me turn you guys on. Thank you. All right, go ahead and take a break.